has always had the problem that the budgetary exercise is a horse trading exercise in which members of Congress or the Senate can say, I'm only willing to, say, clean up pollution over here if you give me permission to pollute more over here. It's an iterative process of horse trading among many legislators. The omnibus budget process within the government of Canada under Stephen Harper is, it's whatever he wants. Nobody adds or subtracts. You're not even allowed, even when we discovered drafting errors. We found drafting errors in C-45 where the English translation didn't agree with the French. We tried to amend that. Those amendments were rejected. They were corrected later in a different bill. Some drafting errors in C-38 were corrected in C-45, but when we found them during the legislative process, say, look, you need to amend this language because it doesn't make any sense. Stephen Harper is the first Prime Minister in the history of Canada who doesn't respect fundamental parliamentary legislative process, which involves the notion that a bill at first reading isn't perfect, that it's going to be amended, that a committee can actually work on it and improve it. Right? So, I mean, I used to work, as many of you will know, I worked in the Office of the Minister of Environment in the Mulroney government. We put forward the Canadian Environmental Protection Act, which is a cradle-to-grave bill dealing with toxic chemicals. When we took it forward to committee, the Liberals and the New Democrats on the committee, those the opposition party of the day, said this would be much better if we kick-started it with a priority substances list so that we could take, say, 10,000 substances that we know are toxic. Let's front-load this bill and get, so anyway, to make a long story short, my boss said, that's a great idea. So the bill changed, it improved, it morphed, it got better. Nobody in the history of parliamentary democracy, I don't think in any country, has ever thought that it's a political defeat to accept a single amendment from an opposition party. It's brand new. And it's very dangerous because what it means is the legislative, so unlike the US, I mean, I don't think I'd hold up the US budget-making process as, a great process. But in Canada, what we're seeing is the worst parts of the US budget process being a big ball of wax and you can't pull it apart, coupled with dictatorship. So nobody else is getting their oar in on what the ball of wax contains, only Stephen Harper. Now I'm not saying Canada, be very careful, I've got to back up and say, I'm not saying we live in a dictatorship, we don't. We live in a democracy. But the current functioning of Parliament is an effective dictatorship in which the Prime Minister's office runs everything, including communications, including whether you can hear from your scientists, including what civil servants are allowed to do, including whether members of Parliament are allowed to speak. So that's an anomaly that can be fixed because, as I just said,